Greetings again, precious friends. Welcome back to my kitchen. Aunt Patty the Carnivore Hippie. And welcome to episode 2 of totally not boring and easy things to do with ground beef. Today we're going to make a Filipino recipe called Tortang Giniling, which translates to ground meat omelette. So it's going to be ground beef and eggs. What could be better? There's going to be a little bit of vegetable in here, but you can completely leave the vegetables out if you want to. They're completely unnecessary. I have said many times, I like a little bit of vegetable. You can use as little or as much as you want. You can use any kind of vegetables that you like, except that if you're using something watery, like tomatoes or zucchini, you'll need to either pre-cook them or salt them to make sure that most of the water comes out so that they don't make the batter soggy. Okay, but we'll talk about that in just a minute. So first off, as usual, we're going to talk about hardware. Here we are. I'm going to move some of this over to try and block off that glare. Thank you. There we go. So we're going to have a large skillet, and we'll have a pancake turner or a spatula. And we'll need a knife because I'm going to show you how I manage my mushrooms. And we'll need a flexible spoon or scraper as usual. I almost always need one of those. Okay, and for software, here we have the aforementioned zucchini. This is about a 50 gram or about 3 ounce zucchini. And what I did was I cut it in quarters lengthwise, and then I diced up the quarters so you see their little triangle shapes or pie wedge shapes. And then I put half a teaspoon of salt sprinkled evenly over, stirred it up, let it sit for an hour. Then I rinsed it off and squeezed it dry and patted it dry with some paper towels to get the extra water out of it, because zucchini is very watery. And had I just put it in plain, it would have wept a whole bunch of water out into the batter, and that would have been unpleasant and wouldn't have worked very well. So if you're doing tomatoes, tomatoes are traditional, you'll need to pre-cook the tomatoes, since tomatoes don't take well to salting. You'll need to pre-cook them in the skillet a little bit if you want to use tomatoes. But till you get the hang of it, just use the vegetables that I'm using. You know what you also could use, which I have some in my refrigerator, is chopped up string beans, green beans. Would be really good too, but you have to pre-cook those until they're tender. And also we have, this has shrunk down to about 1/3 of a cup. There's 1/4 of a cup of chopped cilantro. There's about 1/2 cup of green onions, minced, and about 4 ounces or 110 grams or so of mushrooms. I left this one whole so I can show you how I manage the mushrooms. And of course a pound of pre-cooked ground beef and some beef fat that I saved from cooking off my ground beef, and we're going to use this to fry the little omelettes. They're actually more like fritters than omelets, but they're very fun and very tasty. So over here, of course, we have 6 eggs, hence omelette, beaten up as though we're going to make scrambled eggs. Got 2 tablespoons of soy sauce, about 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt. If you like your food really lightly salted, then you might not even need any salt at all, because the soy sauce will probably be salty enough. But you can totally do the salt to taste. You can just not add any and add it to taste after. cooking when it's on the plate. And here we have about between a quarter and a half a teaspoon of freshly ground black pepper. Y'all know how I feel about pre-ground black pepper. It should be freshly ground. I ground this just a few minutes ago. I generally grind my pepper directly into my recipes, but I wanted you to see about the right amount. Okay, so we're going to get started, and I'm going to start by showing you how I've chopped up the mushrooms, because it's a little bit different, and they're not just sliced, but I like to do them this way because they make nice little meaty chunks, and they're very easy to do. So I'm going to get this as close as I can get right here. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to take the mushroom, lay it on its side, and then cut it in half. Just like that. See? Cut it in half. Then looks like a little hamburger bun. Set it down. And then cut 1, 2, 3. If it's a really big mushroom, you can cut across more times. If it's a littler mushroom, you can cut across fewer times. And then however many times you cut this way, you're going to cut this way. So 1, 2, 3. And that is how you dice a mushroom. It's amazing how many people just never deal with this stuff. Easy peasy. Okay, now we're going back over here. Now we have to pre-cook our vegetables because we already talked about water coming out into the vegetables. So we're going to put this on. I guess we could have put that on while we were doing the mushroom, but I didn't think about it because we've already established that I'm not terribly organized. So while we're waiting for that to heat up, I can tell you I used to live in California in the Bay Area in Solano County, and for a long time, for many years, because of the military presence from Mare Island, the Navy base that was there for many, many, many years, Solano County had the highest level of Filipino residents of any county in the country. It's since been superseded, but for many, many years. So I lived there for over 20 years. There's a very strong Filipino culture, and there's a lot of Filipino food. It's really very delicious. There's some unusual things that I never actually had the guts to try. Balut is one of them. Balut is an egg, a chicken egg, or sometimes duck eggs. Whoops. Must have some water underneath the skillet there. Get rid of that. Balut is a chicken or a duck egg, typically, sometimes quail eggs, that are fertilized. So they do have a semi-developed chick inside, and then they are pickled with the chicken embryo or the baby bird embryo partially formed inside. And yeah, I never got up the guts to try a balut, but yeah, I have had people tell me that they're delicious if you can get your mind around it. But yeah, I never was able to. Anyway, this is a dish that I learned about years ago, and that I have cooked every now and then since. And I find it just really, really a great addition to a carnivore way of eating, because it's very simple, it's very fast, it's very easy, and at its core, it's just ground beef and eggs. And what could be better than that? So my pan feels like it's kind of hot, so let's go back to it. Now we're going to have to cook off some of these vegetables because they will have a lot of water in them, and we need to get rid of that, some of it anyway. So My pan is hot. I'm going to put in about a tablespoon of this beef fat. And turn the heat down a little bit. And we're going to start with our mushrooms, because those are going to leak quite a bit of water, and we need to get rid of that. And plus the fact that browning these mushrooms is going to add some very, 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 very delicious flavor. We're going to add a pinch of our salt, because that's going to help the mushrooms release their water. There are very few things on this earth that go together, in my opinion, better than mushrooms and soy sauce. So you can see now that the mushrooms are starting to release their water. It's great to use a very large skillet for this, because the water in the mushrooms will evaporate very, very quickly. And the mushrooms will not caramelize until the water is sufficiently gone. So we want this on medium-high heat. A lot of pan room. You see that the mushrooms have a lot of room to bounce around. You're going to keep the heat high enough so that these mushrooms keep sizzling and they don't, no liquid pools in the pan. In other words, the liquid is evaporating pretty much as fast as the mushrooms can let it out. You can see how much they've shrunk so far. They're almost as much as, lost as much as half their volume at this point. And they'll lose more, but I don't know that that's necessary. So I'm going to let them sit there for a second. And toast a little bit. Oh, I wish you could smell it. I love the smell of sauteing mushrooms. Now, if you don't like mushrooms, you just leave them out. Like I said, you can use whatever kind of vegetables you want in this. This is very, very similar to the Chinese dish egg fuyang. But fuyang usually has cabbage and bean sprouts and water chestnuts in it. And water chestnuts and bean sprouts are actually pretty darn carby. So you could use some chopped up cabbage in this. That would be awesome. Now we're going to put in, that's cooked down enough. We're going to put in our zucchini. The reason why we didn't just cook the zucchini to get the water out is because zucchini turns into mush if you cook it too long. And I didn't want the zucchini to be mush. The reason why we're putting zucchini in here is because traditionally, Tortang Giniling has peas in it. And I'm not going to put peas in it because they're starchy. But I like the idea of the little bits of green, so I decided to go with zucchini. Okay, here we go. Onions. Oops, actually I'm going to save a little bit for garnish. And we're going to add a little bit more fat, just to make sure the pan stays nice and lubricated. Okay, now this is done. I'm going to put about half of the cilantro in. We're going to save the rest. for garnish. Now, if you look here, we're going to make a pound worth and 6 eggs. And we got maybe not even a cup's worth of vegetables here. So it's really not a vegetable dish. It really is a meat dish. So here comes our pound. This is a pound of raw weight. So this is not a pound of cooked weight. This is like maybe a little bit more or less than 3/4 of a pound of cooked ground beef. And we're going to just toss it in here again, just long enough to reheat the ground beef. Add the rest of our salt. Our black pepper. And our soy sauce. The great important thing about soy sauce is to sizzle it. It should go into a hot pan because that changes the character of the soy sauce a lot. Soy sauce, most of the time, should be cooked. In my opinion. I'm sure you'd find somebody that would argue with me with regard to that. But we want a lot of the liquid to evaporate and coat the meat. There we go. That is done. Easy and quick. Now, if you wanted to, you could just eat this like this. It would be delicious. Nothing wrong with it. Now, since I do not have another really big skillet, which I might actually rectify that, I have to go over and wash out this pan because if I try to cook the omelets in this pan, they'll stick. So bear with me. I'm going to pause the video. Welcome back, precious friends. We're getting ready to fry up our tortang, our omelets. And we're going to start with putting some, again, beef fat. You can use whatever kind of fat you want. You can use the beef fat from frying up your ground beef. You can use some lard. You can use oil if that's what you're doing. Most of you probably aren't doing oil, but you can use chicken schmaltz. Whatever you want. You can use clarified butter or ghee. I wouldn't recommend using regular butter. That might burn. But as I like to say, you do you, boo-boo. So, while I was washing out my pan, I got out my disher. This is what we're going to use to scoop our mixture into the pan. This is about 1/4 cup. You don't have to have one of these. You can just use a 1/4 cup measure or a big spoon. We have our 6 eggs that have been beaten, just like we're going to make scrambled eggs. And our beef mixture has been cooling slightly. Now, it's not cold. You don't want it cold. You want it warm, but not piping hot because you want the egg mixture to thicken a little bit from the heat left over on the meat for when we pour, so that it won't run too much into the pan when we go to cook it. So we got our pan on medium-low with our fat melted in there. And we're going to mix our warm beef mixture into our eggs. Stir it up really good. The eggs are going to cook a little bit. That's good. Because that way they won't run all over the pan too much. And it's also good to have your eggs at room temperature when you start this. Should have said that at the beginning, but I'll write it in the recipe notes. We got our pan on medium low. It's about halfway between medium and low. Well, that would be medium low, wouldn't it? I have a between a 6 and a 1, and I have it on 2. Just to give you a clue. So here we go. Here's our egg mixture. Make sure you get some egg in with the beef. It's really easy to kind of end up scooping out all the beef and vegetables and leave a lot of the egg left. So try and make sure you get some eggs. So see, I'm going to pour. Now you're going to have to shape it a little bit because it does run. But while it's cooking, this is why you don't want it to be too hot. Just tuck it up into a little cake shape. And then put the next one in. Let the extra drop off. You'll probably only be able to cook 2 or 3 at a time in the pan. So this one's all firmed up, you can see, so I'm going to go ahead and bloop, turn it over. So what I generally do is I put one in, scooch it up, and by the time that one's scooched up, then I can put another one in. Then I scooch that one up, I turn the first one over, and then I'll put the third one in. Scooch. Just push the loose egg back up on the beef mixture. I don't know if you can see the third one. That's the third one. Now we're going to turn the second one. And the first one is almost done. So in this pan I can get 3 of them. I'm going to get my plate here. I'm going to turn my oven on a little bit to heat it. You don't need to see them. I'm just going to turn it on low. Mine starts at 170. You'll be able to feel on the omelet once it firms up. If it's really, really soft, you'll be able to tell it's not really all the way cooked on the inside, but you don't want it to cook too fast. That's why you want it on medium low. Okay, but this one is pretty much done. So I'm going to put it on here and tuck it in the oven. Let me move you back a little bit so I can get my oven open. And we'll turn number 3 over. At this point, it's ready to turn. Look how yummy and brown. So I'm tilting the pan to see how much oil we have left, how much fat. And it looks like we have about a tablespoon of fat left. That's enough for to add another one. Now that we have our first one out of the pan. It's also helpful to kind of tilt the pan a little bit to keep the liquid eggs to themselves, so to speak. Keep them from climbing around and getting into the other eggs. So I'm touching this one, and it is almost done. By the time this one's done, this one then will be ready to flip. And then by the time we put another one in, this one will be ready to come out. So this one's coming out. You see this one's pretty much keeping its eggs to itself, mostly. I'm going to scoot that one over here because it's easier to load the new ones on that side of the pan. I am going to add a tiny, tiny bit more fat. You should have about a tablespoon of fat to add your next pancake or omelette or tortang. Scooch, scooch. Now we're going to flip this one, flip, and we're going to remove this one because it's done. So, you know, you can see it goes in a cycle. As soon as one is ready to, at one stage, the next one's ready to go to the next stage. And it looks like we may just have just enough fat to put one more in. I just want to make sure I get enough egg in every scoop because it's really easy just to end up scooping all the meat out and then having a puddle of eggs left over with nothing. So I make sure that I stir the mixture very well every time I scoop something out. Tilt the pan a little bit. Cool, pan's getting a little cool, so I'm going to raise the temperature a little bit. The eggs should sizzle when they go in. And this one's almost set. And that one's, and of course this one is done. And this one's ready to flip. I'm gonna do one more. I'm not gonna worry about doing the whole bowl full for you guys. You guys can see how it's working. Yep. A little bit more. You guys can see how it goes. You could do 2 skillets with this if you wanted to. If you wanted to go really fast. Or you could use a big electric skillet. One of those big broad ones. Or one of those 2-burner ones that goes across 2 burners of your stove. That would be easy. And this is ready to turn. this is ready to take out. So that's the last one I'm going to do. There's a little bit left. I'll do that later, but you guys have seen enough to see how it works. Just going to let those cook a little bit more, and going to move the camera a little bit so I can go and get my plate to serve. Now these are traditionally served with a Filipino condiment called banana ketchup, which is basically exactly what it sounds like. It's mashed up bananas that are cooked with the same spices and vinegar that regular tomato ketchup is cooked with. And it's real popular in the Philippines. You can buy it at Asian grocery stores often, but there's just no way to make banana ketchup and have it not be sugary, because bananas are sugary. So what we're going to do is we're going to serve this with my homemade sweet chili sauce, which is going to stand in for the banana ketchup, which is sweet and tangy and a little bit savory. So that's gonna, so instead of putting these in the oven, I'm just gonna put these directly on the plate, how we would serve them up. This one's close to done. Turn off the stove. Now, I'm going to garnish with a little bit of cilantro. Here, I'm having trouble getting things in the shot again, huh? Let me just recenter. Someday I might actually get good at this. Cilantro, a little bit of green onion. Again, this is completely optional. You don't have to add anything but eggs and beef to this. And my little jar of homemade sweet Thai sweet chili sauce. Standing in instead of banana ketchup. There you are. That's an awesome meal. As much or as little vegetable as you choose. Here we go. Oh, it's hot. Beef, a little bit of zucchini, a little bit of mushroom, some sweet chili sauce, eggs. It's really good. The eggs are rich, a little bit creamy, but brown at the same time. The chili sauce is a little bit sweet, but also very savory and a little spicy. The beef is very beefy, obviously, and it's just very delicious and satisfying. It is easy to do. You can pre-do your ingredients pre-chop up all of your vegetables and stuff, and just wait till the last minute to beat up your eggs. You may have noticed that the ingredient list for this recipe and the ingredient list for the immediately preceding recipe for the other ground beef recipe that I did have a very, very similar, the beef larb recipe, they have a very similar ingredient list, which is cool because that means you can prep for both recipes at the same time and just keep the prep stuff in bowls or in Ziploc baggies in your refrigerator, and it'll keep for several days. So you can prep both meals at one time and then have two wonderful carnivore style meals ready to go. And with that, one more bite. The sweet and sour of the chili sauce is just so good with the richness of the beef and eggs. Anyway, that's it for this time. I'm so happy that you joined me in my kitchen. I hope you will try these recipes, and we will have some more. Remember, there's going to be 5 completely not boring and easy things to do with ground beef to support your carnivore way of eating. I will see you all soon. Peace, love, and meat. I love you. Bye.